Trust used to be personal. You trusted people, you knew people whose reputation you could observe over time.
But the digital world changed that. Today, we make decisions based on signals, emails, profiles, messages, often from people we've never met.
And those signals can be manufactured.
Which is why modern security isn't built on trust alone.
In high-stakes environments, aviation, finance, medicine trust is not emotional.
It's procedural.
In this episode, we examine why trust must be engineered.
And how systems replace intuition when decisions actually matter.
Because today, trust isn't a feeling.
It's a system.
We are jumping straight into a fascinating document today titled Trust is a System, Not a Feeling. It's part of the Digital Environments series.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to solve a very specific, I guess you'd call it a modern mystery. Like, why is your gut instinct, which probably serves you perfectly well in the physical world, just an absolute disaster when you go online?
Yeah, it really is a disaster. And to understand how to fix this massive digital vulnerability, we first have to look at why our brains are so easily tricked in the first place.
Exactly. We need to establish where human trust actually comes from, mechanically speaking.
Right, and that requires looking backward, before we can look forward. What's fascinating here is that the fundamental mechanics of human trust, they were forged entirely in a physical world.
Oh, totally.
For almost the entirety of human history, trust wasn't some conceptual framework. It was a strict economic and survival necessity that you built through direct, repeated relationships. I mean, everything happened within a small, knowable community.
The text actually provides this incredibly evocative visual of an ancient stone marketplace, like a bustling bazaar. Think about the sensory reality of that environment. It's dusty, it's crowded, it's really loud. But more importantly, think about the stakes. If you are buying grain or tools from a merchant in your village, your family has likely known their family for decades.
Decades, yeah. You see their physical face, you know exactly where they live.
Right. Intent is highly legible because it is quite literally face-to-face. Contrast that with buying something from a faceless avatar online today. It is a completely different universe of risk.
Exactly. In that ancient bazaar, trust worked because the consequences of betrayal were immediate and, well, unavoidable. If that merchant sold you spoiled grain, the entire village would know by sunset.
Their track record was right there in the open.
Right. It formed the absolute visible basis of their reliability. Betrayals carried an instant, devastating social cost. You would be entirely exiled from the economic life of the community. That was the original system of trust. It was informal, sure, but it was rigorously enforced by physical proximity.
But the sources point out that modern digital environments have just ripped us out of that village. They've dropped us into what they call the anonymous scale.
The anonymous scale, yes.
And this is really the root of the crisis. We are now constantly interacting with total strangers. We're dealing with anonymous accounts, automated bots, massive global networks, all of that incredibly rich personal context, the visible stakes, the local consequences, the eye contact, it's just completely gone.
It is, yeah. It's like a sensory deprivation tank for human trust.
Yeah.
We have moved from personal context to anonymous scale, and this creates what the document defines as the dangerous gap.
The dangerous gap.
Right, and it's this terrifying reality that your daily decisions, signing a contract, transferring money, downloading a file, they still absolutely require trust. But the traditional historical signals you use to establish that trust have just evaporated.
So you're left operating ancient biological hardware in a modern software environment. You are biologically wired to look for a firm handshake, a steady voice, a familiar face.
But you're operating in a digital void where those things don't exist.
Or, much more dangerously, where those things are perfectly simulated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfectly simulated.
Which actually brings me to a question for you, the listener. Think about your own inbox this morning or, the last time you bought something from a totally unknown website. What was the specific visual cue that instantly made you drop your guard?
That's a great question.
Was it a padlock icon? A clean font?
Right.
Let us know in the comments below because I'm genuinely curious what signals you think you are picking up on. Because according to this analysis, since the old signals are gone, our brains just panic. We start guessing.
We do. We fall headfirst into what the document calls the intuition trap.
The intuition trap.
Right. Yeah, so the intuition trap is precisely what happens when humans try to function in an environment devoid of real, verifiable trust markers. We default to emotional heuristics.
And a heuristic is just a mental shortcut to save brain power, right?
Exactly, a shortcut.
Yeah.
So we look for confidence, we look for familiarity, we look for visual polish, and we listen for an authoritative tone. We are desperate for something, anything that just feels reliable.
And what terrifies me about this is that professional hackers don't even need to write malicious code to get past a firewall anymore.
Well,
They deeply understand this psychological desperation.
right, absolutely.
The document states it bluntly, right? Attackers don't break systems, they imitate trust signals.
If we connect this to the broader reality of cybersecurity, the image of a hacker frantically typing green code into a black terminal that is mostly Hollywood fiction.
Right, the guy in the hoodie in the basement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In reality, nothing technical actually needs to fail for a massive breach to occur. The victim simply has to believe the manufactured signal. The emotional heuristic isn't a safeguard. It is the primary attack surface.
The sources outline the anatomy of these attacks, and it is entirely psychological. They talk about spoofed emails, where the sender's identity is completely fabricated to match a trusted vendor or colleague. They mention cloned interfaces, literally creating pixel-perfect visual replicas of legitimate banking platforms just to harvest your credentials.
And this works because it hijacks your intuition trap.
Oh, wait, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
If I go to a platform and it has a flawlessly polished visual interface, a beautifully designed logo, an incredibly professional support staff responding to my chat, I mean, shouldn't my brain reward that?
Well,
Because building a highly secure, legitimate business takes immense effort, you know? Doesn't a clean, flawless user interface usually signal a trustworthy company behind it?
10 or 15 years ago, your intuition would have been correct.
Yeah.
A highly polished website meant a legitimate company had invested serious capital and talent into building it.
Right.
But this raises a crucial point about the modern economics of manufacturing those signals. Today, visual polish and a professional tone are the absolute cheapest things to manufacture.
Because the technology to fake it has been totally democratized.
Precisely. You can use an automated tool to spin up a flawless replica of an enterprise login page in seconds. You can use generative AI to write perfectly professional, authoritative, urgent emails without a single typo. The cost of faking polish is functionally zero. So, if you are relying on polish to verify identity, your belief in that signal is the actual security failure.
That makes a lot of sense. The sources highlight exactly how this is weaponized with executive impersonation, too. Attackers gather data on a CEO. Maybe they scrape their tone from public interviews or LinkedIn posts, and then they deploy an authority tone in a Friday afternoon email.
Yeah, the classic Friday afternoon rush.
Right. And the goal is to specifically override your normal verification instincts. If your CEO emails you with a highly confident, urgent request to pay a vendor, your brain's procedural caution just shuts down. The urgency and the authority completely hijack your logic.
And attackers execute this exact same emotional hijacking from the bottom up too, using fake support staff.
Oh, right.
By manufacturing helpfulness and urgency, they bypass your defenses entirely. You're locked out of an account, a chat window pops up, and someone sounds incredibly friendly and competent.
You just feel relieved.
Exactly. You think, oh, this person is just trying to help me. And because they satisfy your emotional heuristic for trust, you just hand over your two-factor authentication code. You let them in.
So if belief in the signal is the actual failure point, then we can't fix the human brain. We have to completely remove the human intuition from the verification loop.
Exactly. We have to engineer it out.
You know, if you're finding this shift from emotional to structural trust as fascinating as we are, make sure you hit subscribe to our YouTube NC Web Dev channel so you don't miss all the new deep dives coming out.
Yeah, definitely subscribe.
Because this is really the pivot point in our analysis. We've established that human intuition is fundamentally broken online. So how do we fix it?
Right.
The text argues we have to look at fields where getting trust wrong doesn't just mean a compromised password, but catastrophic disaster. We have to look at how high-risk industries solved the intuition trap decades ago.
Yeah, the central thesis of the document is that in modern digital systems, trust is currently overloaded. The text uses a really brilliant architectural metaphor here.
Oh, the suspension bridge.
Yes. Think of trust as a massive suspension bridge. Right now, our emotional intuition is acting like a single, flimsy steel cable.
Right.
In the physical world, that cable only had to hold the weight of your local village bazaar.
Right.
But online, we are driving million-ton freight trains of global financial data and corporate secrets over that exact same cable. We were asking one emotional feeling to solve identity verification, authority validation, decision legitimacy, and reputation assessment all at once.
And the cable is snapping under the load. It just cannot hold.
Right. No single mechanism, especially not human emotion, can carry that load reliably. It must be supported by heavy-duty engineered pillars.
Think about it this way. We would never let a surgeon operate on us just because they sounded really confident in the hospital hallway.
Definitely not.
We don't gauge their vibe to decide if they are qualified to cut us open.
Well-
We rely entirely on the hospital's credentialing system, their medical licenses, the structural authority of the institution. So why on earth do we treat the digital systems that hold our entire lives so differently?
That is the exact parallel the sources draw. High-stakes physical industries realized long ago that human intuition does not scale with complexity.
Right.
Look at aviation. Trust in aviation isn't about hoping the pilot is having a good day or feeling confident. It is structurally engineered through pre-flight checklists, strict crew verification protocols, and standardized communications that actively remove ego from the cockpit.
It's the same in medicine with surgical timeouts, right? A surgical timeout intentionally flattens the hierarchy in the operating room.
Yes.
A nurse has the structural authority to stop a highly experienced lead surgeon if a checklist item isn't verified. Informal authority is just rejected.
And look at the nuclear industry. They operate on strict two-person integrity.
Mm.
There's absolutely no informal authority allowed in a missile silo.
Right, you can't just talk your way into a launch.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if you are a four-star general, you cannot launch without layered approvals, and a second physical key turned simultaneously. And in finance, it's trade authorization, immutable audit trails, and strict segregation of duties.
So when we map this onto the digital space, it requires a total paradigm shift. We have to move toward evidence-based trust. The document explicitly states that structured environments stop asking the emotional question, do I trust this person? And they start asking the procedural question, can this be verified?
And it is so vital to understand that moving from an assumption layer to a verification layer isn't about becoming a paranoid cynic.
Right, it's not about hating people.
No, it's not about distrusting humanity at all. It is simply about actively removing the reliance on human judgment under conditions of ambiguity. You should never be put in a position where you have to guess if an email from your boss is real based on the phrasing.
Right.
The system should verify the cryptographic origin of that email before your eyes even read the text.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of the solution. How do we build this engineered trust online? Because we can't use physical keys like a nuclear silo.
All right, it's all digital.
So the document outlines a framework called the reputation architecture, and it presents it as a foundational pyramid. In a structured digital system, reputation isn't an emotional feeling you have about a brand. It is an interlocking mechanism of traceable behavior.
Yeah, if you examine the base of this architecture pyramid, the foundational layer is transaction history.
Okay.
What has this entity actually done? Not what do they claim to do, but what is the immutable record of their actions?
Right.
Moving up the pyramid, the next layer is verified credentials, then transparent records, and finally, near the top, peer validation.
Let's make this concrete for a second. Imagine a massive corporate procurement system and a new vendor called, let's say, Apex Supplies wants to get paid.
Okay, Apex Supplies.
In the old emotional system, Apex sends a polished brochure, a friendly email, and they get approved. In the reputation architecture, the system forces them through the pyramid. It automatically queries their transaction history with other banks. It demands cryptographically verified credentials proving their tax status. It checks transparent records for compliance and cross-references peer validation from other verified nodes in the network. Only when all of those layers are stacked and mathematically verified does Epic Supplies get a final reputation score.
Exactly. And that reputation score becomes the objective system memory. It is a queryable database of truth.
I love that phrase, database of truth.
It really is. And the most important aspect of this architecture is that it is entirely decoupled from impression management. A sophisticated scammer can manage your impression of them with a fake website and a friendly tone, but they cannot fake an immutable transaction history across a distributed network.
It's turning reputation from a vibe into a rigid algorithmic credit score for truth. And this connects directly to how the document completely redefines authority. The sources are incredibly strict about this point. Authority must be observable.
Yes, the document draws a very sharp, uncompromising line between what authority is not and what it actually is. Informal signals that can be mimicked, like a prestigious job title, confident speech, or a Blue verified checkmark in a social media profile that is not observable authority. Those are just costumes.
So what is the actual substance then?
Observable authority is structural. It is defined roles within a system. It is documented, auditable responsibility. It is clear procedural boundaries, knowing exactly what a user is and isn't allowed to do, and explicit escalation paths when something falls outside those boundaries.
When authority is structural, it can be audited by a machine. When it is informal, it can be exploited by a con artist.
Exactly.
This leads right into the specific daily systems the document says we need to implement to remove human guesswork from the equation. Things like verification callbacks.
Yes, callbacks are crucial.
And I want to ask you, the listener, right now, how often do you actually verify an urgent email with a separate phone call? Drop a comment below. If you receive an email from a vendor changing their bank routing number, do you pick up the phone and call the number you have on file?
Most people don't.
Right, because honestly, it feels socially awkward to do that, right? You feel like you're accusing them of lying.
It feels incredibly awkward because it deliberately breaks the social flow of the interaction. But that is exactly why the system needs to mandate it. A verification callback isn't an insult. It is simply the process of confirming identity through a known, separate, out-of-band channel before acting.
Ah, out-of-band channel.
Right. If the system requires it, the social awkwardness is removed. The document also points to approval chains, which distribute decision authority across multiple independent nodes.
Okay, so if an attacker manages to perfectly impersonate the CEO and tricks the CFO into authorizing a massive wire transfer, the attack still fails.
Right.
Because the approval chain requires a third independent node to verify the transaction based on predefined criteria, not emotional pressure.
They also highlight dual authorization. For high-consequence actions like altering a core database or moving large sums of capital, you literally require two confirmed actors.
Like the two keys in the nuclear submarine.
It's the exact digital equivalent of turning the two keys in the submarine. One compromised human cannot bring down the system.
And finally, the cornerstone of it all. Predefined workflows.
Predefined workflows are perhaps the most vital tool we have. The ultimate goal of procedural trust is to completely remove the need for a human to make a judgment call while under pressure. You remove improvisation from critical decision paths entirely.
Wow, removing improvisation entirely.
Yes, a well-designed system ensures that trust is never a single decision made by a single person in a single isolated moment. The rules are set when everyone is calm, so they can be executed flawlessly when everyone is panicked.
So bringing all these threads together, we are looking at a fundamentally new reality here. In the modern, hyper-connected digital world, trust starts being a feeling and becomes a highly engineered infrastructure. It has to be constructed from verifiable signals, layered reputation pyramids, visible and auditable authority, and repeatable, rigid procedures.
We really have to accept that design intent must replace intuitive judgment. We have reached a point in technological complexity with AI, global networks, and automated attacks where human intuition is simply outmatched.
Yeah.
It's a biological tool trying to solve a mathematical problem. Systems must carry the weight of trust that individual human minds can no longer bear.
It's a necessary evolution, but, the sources leave us with a fascinating, almost unsettling preview of where this all leads next. If trust must be engineered and human intuition is removed, then someone or something has to design and maintain these structural systems.
Which introduces an entirely new set of risks. This raises an incredibly important question about the transition from personal trust to systemic control. By adopting procedural trust, we are handing the daily execution to verification over to automation.
Right.
The algorithms and the predefined workflows execute the rules. But who owns the strategic layer? Who actually controls the decision layer that programs the automation in the first place?
And that is the perfect provocative thought to leave you with today. If we successfully remove human intuition from the equation and we let complex digital systems carry the massive weight of global trust, where should human authority remain?
It's a huge question.
If the systems are running the trust, who is watching the systems? Think about the implications of that and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of modern trust. We'll see you on the next one.